Hello, everybody. A very, very warm welcome to all of you. A good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, for depending on from where you're watching this webinar. Um, Let me know if you guys can hear me clearly. Am I audible to all of you? Do let me know that. Let me just know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. All right. Please let me know if I am audible to all of you. Let me know if I'm audible. A quick yes would be good. And I would also love to know who all are watching this. Today, we are going to talk about how to go from the 50th percentile to the 99th percentile on GMAT Verbal. All right. And we are going to discuss in detail what should be our action plan, all of those things. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. Thank you. All right. Let's get started. Um, as I said, that how to go from the 50th percentile to the 99th percentile. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are even thinking in your mind, is it even possible to do that in, say, under a month? And just to start on a really, really positive note, I'm going to talk about one of my students, Rishabh Iyer. I do a lot of private tutoring with GMAT Viz. I've mentored over 30,000 students now for various exams, and I myself have scored the 99th percentile multiple times now on the verbal section. So I was going to talk about Rishabh. And just to tell you that it is definitely possible to go from a low percentile to a very high percentile in a really, really small number of days. All right. So Rishabh, he studied for GMAT quite extensively before he came to us. He'd already used Magoosh, he'd already used GMAT, two very good courses, but he was stuck nonetheless at a 670 verbal 34, even after all the effort that he had put in, almost for a year. And at that point, he, just before coming to us, he spent 2 months of intensive practice, given mock tests, and taken the exam again, scoring the same 670 with the same verbal score. So plateaued, no improvement at all. And it was then that he came to us, uh, and through our joint efforts, he improved to a 740 with a verbal 41 in just 20 days, just slightly over 20 days actually, using GMAT Quiz. All right. And he got selected to NCR and Kellogg's, and he's now an alum of NCR. So that was to tell you that it is definitely possible in a short period of time with the right, let's say, approach, methods, and plan. It is possible to reach this level. All right. Okay. Now, what is the kind of effort that is going to be needed for getting a verbal 85 or above, which is where your 99th percentile and more lie? All right. Very simply put, it depends whether you are a retaker or whether you're a beginner. If you're a retaker, all right, then uh, around 40 to 90 hours of focused efforts should suffice it. Again, provided that you're following the right strategies, the right approach. All right, but if you're a beginner, if you're a first time taker, then definitely you will need a lot more than that, about 120 to 150 hours of focused efforts. The hours, how you distribute the hours over your weekdays, your weekends, all that will depend on your work schedule, whether you're working, whether you're not working, all of that. All right. But that is the kind of dedicated effort minimum that you require to reach that verbal 85. That desire to reach, if that purpose is there, then you definitely have to put in the required efforts. All right. So, okay, we have discussed that the amount of time that you'll need, but then what else is required? Now, very, very important is a change that you need to make, and this change is to be made to your mindset. Trust me, this is probably the biggest hurdle that you will be facing. All right. What is this? So the mindset issue, when we talk about verbal, all right, what comes to your mind? Can you tell me, can you share me what is the biggest problem that you face with verbal, guys? This is a question for all of you out there. Thank you so much for taking out your time and attending this webinar. And I promise you, stay with me. You will get to learn a few things that you probably either didn't know or you knew, but you brushed it under the carpet. So, yes, what is the biggest hurdle, according to you, which you face with verbal when it comes to verbal prep, and that issue you don't face in quant, that issue you don't really face in DI? What is the biggest issue with verbal? All right. So Trupti, thank you. Trupti says not able to grasp the passages. All right, Trupti, I hear you. Taylor says CR is, so. What in CR, Taylor? What hurts you? I mean, what is it with CR? So Trupti said that it's not the she doesn't understand certain passages. Taylor says not understanding what the question is. So basically, Taylor and Trupti's problem is similar. Taylor isn't able to grasp the, let's say, the crux of the passage, and sorry, Trupti is not able to grasp the crux of the passage, and Taylor is not able to grasp what the stimulus of the CR question is saying. So Trupti says it requires me so much time. So time is also an issue. That means what else, guys? There are over half, uh, over 40 of you watching this webinar. I would really love you to. I can definitely point out some of the mindset issues, but it would be so good coming from you. So please share with me what is it that you're facing with verbal. Jishun says the speed of finishing the question. So I guess, Ji, what you mean is you are struggling with the timing aspect. You're struggling with uh, trying to finish the questions in time, and that is what you're facing. All right. So any more? Any other offers here? Quickly. All right. Let me get to the crux then. And I'm sure you will identify with one or more of these issues. So a lot of us think that I'm not an avid reader, and therefore verbal is going to be difficult for me. As Tripti was saying that it is difficult for her to grasp passages. So not understanding complex topics is what Tripti is facing an issue with. All right, not enough time, what G is facing with. There's always a race with time and questions. All right, 23 questions, 45 minutes, just not enough time. And a lot of you think probably that I don't read books. How am I going to resolve? Because I don't read books, because I'm not an avid reader, therefore my verbal is weak. Or a lot of us, actually, this is a very important point. I have mentored so many students, and one of the things that I've come across is that students think, oh, this answer is a better one than the other one, and therefore it's correct. Which is like there's a mindset that, okay, there is a possibility that more than one answer could be correct, but then we are supposed to pick the best one. Okay, this can also strengthen the conclusion, this can also strengthen the conclusion, but this strengthens best. All right. Or you think that my vocabulary is not good, half the words I don't understand, I don't have a good command over the language, and therefore my verbal. Also, I'm pretty sure that these are some of the issues that you face. Please remember, this is not a prerequisite to scoring well on verbal. I have come across students who are avid readers. All right, they read at least 10 to 15 books in a month. All right, and yet their verbal scores are really, really, really low. All right. On the other hand, I have come across people who aren't avid readers, but they have been able to successfully score a 90 plus percentile. All right. Second, there is always just one correct answer and all the others are incorrect. There is no better or worse option. Till the time you think this, there will be a mental block in your head. All right. You will always be juggling between two options. All right. So these mindsets you have to get rid of. It's like remove all the clutter so that fresh new ideas can come in. Vocabulary. GMAT does not test your vocabulary. All right. At GMAT Whiz, we teach you what to do if you come across a word, the meaning of which you are not really sure of or you are not aware of at all. We tell you how to deal with this not understood words. All right. Don't understand complex topics. Well, GMAT is not testing whether you are a good physicist or you're a good biologist or you're a good mathematician or you're a good literati or whatever. They are not testing you for your field knowledge. Therefore, it's not that you have to understand the topics, it's that you have to really get involved with the topic that is being discussed on the screen in front of you. All right, Trupti, remember that you don't have to be good at that topic, but the way to grasping or understanding of the passage is to understand the sentences. I'll talk that about more about that later. As far as timing is concerned, guys, we try to squeeze the let's say, approach or method that we follow into the time. Oh, I have to solve this question under 2 minutes. So let me just go about it any which how. All I need to do is I have to get an answer. All right. If I don't get an answer, let me skip and move. The approach cannot be squeezed into the time. Your approach has to be built such, your method has to be built such that there will be enough time for most questions. Okay. So this mindset issue is one of the first hurdles that you have to get over. So thank you, Ankit. I can see just now that you had also stated that options are very confusing. Again, remember, they're confusing because probably you haven't understood the CR stimulus properly. Probably you haven't understood the passage properly. And I'm going to talk about that also later today. All right. Um, okay. Harshit is saying how to improve speed, maintaining the accuracy. Harshit, very, very important, very, very apt question. How to improve speed, maintaining the accuracy. So, speed first or accuracy first? I think that's a no-brainer, no? Accuracy first and then only speed. So, we're going to talk about how to achieve that, Harshit. Rushik, language and technical words, I've already told you. GMAT doesn't test vocabulary. So, how to understand the technical language, how to decode that. I have a passage that I'm going to bring up today later down the line, which I'll show you how to decode information. All right. Shubham is saying almost the same thing. All right. And Nivetha is also talking about closed choices. All right. So great. I think there are a lot of you who, who resonate with these mindset issues. So get rid of these. They don't really matter. Okay. Then what to do? Let's talk about that. All right. So this is the mindset that you have to get rid of. You have to maintain a positive thought process. What is that? And trust me, guys, this is so important. This one small thing can change the wiring of your brain, the way you think. You have to stop thinking that problem is not with verbal. Okay, the problem is, you have to actually think that the problem is not verbal, but the problem is because we feel verbal is subjective. As I was talking to you just now, that some of us feel there are two possible answers. uh, Answers are subjective, depends on the question maker. Till the time you keep thinking like this, you will never make any progress. So please remember, you have to think that verbal is as unbiased, as objective, as logical as quant. I'll come to that in a moment. All right. So stop thinking verbal is subjective. Stop thinking there are multiple answers that are possible. Stop thinking that. All right. The problem is not with us. Okay. It is the way we are solving the question. So don't think, oh, I'm not a good reader. That is why I'm failing at this. Oh, I don't come from an English medium school. Oh, English is not my native language. Don't think these things. All right. Because if you think this, your brain will also think, you're literally telling yourself, I'm not good. So don't tell yourself. What you tell yourself matters a lot. You are good. It's the method, it's the way you're approaching the questions which is at fault, and that is what you need to correct. All right. Verbal is actually easier than quant and DI. You might be thinking, oh, it's very easy for her to say that. She's a verbal tutor, she's a verbal expert. So for her, it's very easy to say verbal is easy and DI and quant is not. Trust me, I have a reason for saying this. Why? See, what happens in quant? You have a problem given to you and you have multiple possible answers, right? Um, Even if the answers are not given there, if you solve the question, you'll have to actually solve the questions. All right. The answers being there or not, they don't matter. With verbal, okay, even if no answer choice is given, if you read the stimulus properly, if you read the passage properly, the answer is within those words. The answer is within the words of the stimulus. The answer is within the words of the passage. So verbal is probably the easiest of the lot. Start with this thought process. And finally, this is what we are going to talk about at length. I will solve more questions, I will automatically improve. No, my dears, it just doesn't work like that. Verbal does not work like that. Your focus should not be on quantity, your focus should be on quality of your solving. How you are learning from one question to another. Have you learned anything? From one question type to another question type, how have you moved? How have you evolved? Do you have a proper strategy that you're using, or is it that, okay, a CR question comes on screen and ad hoc you apply whatever, this technique, that technique, this gimmick, that gimmick, and you get it done? All right, if your focus is just to solve more and more questions to see whether your accuracy is improving or not, I'm sure you'll find yourself stuck. All right, so positive thought process. So more about this solving more and not solving more and focusing more on learning. All right, now before we start with that, let me tell you that GMAT Whiz is actually the world's truly personalized course. Why do I say this? Multiple reasons. Number one, you get a personalized study plan depending on the time that you have set for yourself. We provide you with real time improvement modules. So if you are weak in any area, the AI driven platform will tell you which areas you need to focus on, what you need to do, where you need to optimize time, where you need to reduce time, where you need to increase time. And we provide you dedicated mentors, real time, mentors who you can interact with face to face. All right, once in every 2 weeks, who can tell you whether you are going on the right path or not, who can suggest changes and improvements to you depending on your weak areas. So this is what GMAT Quiz brings to the table, which no other study plan, no other provider does. Anyways, moving beyond this, so let's talk about how students generally start the preparation. Okay, before we really talk about what you should do, the master plan to improving your, going from 50th to 99th, let's talk about what we normally do, because that is where we have to start with. Like, once we know what are the things that we are doing wrong, then we can talk about how to improve on that. So most popular study sequences, okay, I need to learn the concepts. Let's say, for example, if it is CR, okay, I need to learn the what is an inference, I need to learn what is an assumption, I need to learn how to weaken a question, how to strengthen a question, I need to learn what is a boldface. I'll learn the concepts and then I will straight away go and practice questions. So I'll take up the official guides, I'll take up the verbal reviews, or if I have joined any provider, I'm going to solve a bunch of questions. All right, and then I'm going to move to taking sectional tests or mock tests. All right, and through all of this, the idea is to get a hold of one book or the other and solve multiple questions followed by multiple mocks. In fact, one of my students, before he came to me, had been simply taking a mock every day, different sources. I mean, he'd already taken 30 odd mocks and his score had not moved. In fact, if at all, it was like a yo yo, suddenly up, suddenly down, suddenly up, suddenly down, suddenly in a plateau, all of that. All right, so this is the most popular study sequence. All right, concept, straight away go to practice, 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 more practice, and then give tests and see if you've improved or not. If you've not improved, again more practice. All right, does this work? Let's understand this through an example. Okay, what's that example? A typical thought process when we start a prep is, okay, quant means mathematics, verbal means English, reading comprehension means reading, CR means different types of questions. All right, so if I need to improve verbal, I need to improve my English. If I need to improve reading and comprehension, I need to read more. If I need to improve my proficiency over different CR questions, I have to solve different types of questions. This is the typical thought process. All right, in fact, this is a thought process that I'm sure will resonate with most of you out there. In fact, I have met tutors who also think the same. They'll tell you, okay, if you want to improve your reading and comprehension, go and read blogs and opinions, and go and read editorials and so on, and you'll improve. All right, I mean, I'll show you a typical learning process that is generally suggested in the industry. I do not suggest this, GMAT Quiz does not do this, but this is a typical learning process out there. Step one, okay, learn about, let's say, for example, if you're looking at CR, all right, or even RC, okay, learn about the various question types that exist there. So main point question, inference question, detailed question, you have strengthened question, weakened question, assumption question. Let's say, uh, then what you need to do, step two is, once you have learned what are the different question types, straight away go and start solving passages. So take up study material, you read newspapers, read novels, improve your vocabulary, do this. And then the next step is, Okay, after you've learned the different types of questions, after you've solved tons of passages, and you have still not improved, then how to improve? Okay, you quickly skim through the passage and then solve more passages. This is a typical process. How many of you have been following this process? Yes, how many have you been following this process, guys? Dipanshu after reading, creating a mental map is an issue for me. I'll show you how to create a mental map, Dipanshu, today. I have a short passage, so please stay with me. When I read the question, often I tend to read the passage again. I'll show you how you can avoid rereading the passage. In fact, at GMAT Viz, we advocate involved and evolved reading. Let me give you the link to the free trial version of the course. Give me a moment. Let me just give you the link to the free trial version of the course. So I have posted the free trial link to the free trial version of the course. You can take a look at that, Dipanshu. Ratan says, could you please suggest on how to find the main context? I'm going to discuss that also. Don't worry. Harshit says me. So there, one. So Harshit, thank you for admitting that. Harshit agrees that he has been following this process for overcoming his RC issues. Um, has it worked, Harshit? I can, even without you answering, I can pretty much say that this wouldn't have helped you improve much. All right. You're welcome, Dipanshu. So what to do? Okay. Now, the core problem is just reading more editorials, reading more blogs, novel reading, improving your vocabulary doesn't resolve the problem. If you want to understand the passage, if you want to map the passage, if you want to understand the main point of the passage, you have to know how to read a passage. Skimming through the paragraphs, reading the first line slowly and then rushing, reading the last sentence more slowly and rushing, just kind of scanning the entire passage, looking for keywords here and there, all right, ignoring the details, just focusing on main ideas. This is not how to read the passage. No one really teaches you how to read the passage, okay? The idea is save time, save time, save time, okay? The focus is shifted from learning how to read the passage to saving time, but then that is not going to resolve the problem of accuracy. Skimming and scanning does not work. Focusing on keywords does not work. GMAT doesn't work like that. See, guys, one very important thing that you ignore for verbal is what you do in quant. You don't do that in verbal. What is a typical approach in quant? All right. Let's say, for example, you first learn a concept. All right, concept related to, let's say, using different, to solve two different variables, we need two equations minimum. You learn this concept. All right, let's say if you have to solve, I'm not a quant expert, but let's say 3x plus 2y, let's say equals to 10, and let's say, all right, you know that I to solve for x and y we need two equations minimum. All right, however, when you're learning the method, you also know that if there is an additional constraint given, then sometimes it is possible to solve using just one simple variable as well. All right, so when you learn math, all right, you first learn, let's say if this is a question and if you have to solve this question, I'm not going to solve the question with you, don't worry. Then you know that first it is important to learn the concepts that are involved in solving this question. Step 2 is learn the method. Okay, when I say learn the method, step 1 is to look for possible solutions. Step 2, I have to fit in different values for the variables, different possible values for the variables. Step 3, there is a method that you have to follow. You know this, that you have to do this for quant. But when it comes to verbal, you don't do this. When it comes to verbal, you just don't have a method. How many of you have a fixed fixed methodology? If you have a fixed methodology, say yes, and if you don't, say no, and please be honest with yourself. Because till you admit it to yourself, until you do that, you'll never be able to improve. How many of you actually think there is a particular method, a step by step method for RC? How many of you think that? Honestly, how many of you think that? How many of you have practiced it? So, Priyanka, GMAT Wiz is actually a self-paced course. All right. And if you're taking private tutoring with me, it is also going to depend on your pace, your learning pace. There will be no rush. All right. There's no rush here. Gaurav says fixed methodology is too difficult to follow. So Gaurav just makes me wonder that how is it actually important to have a fixed methodology in quant, but not to have that in verbal? Why should it be difficult to follow? Thank you, Yasin, for admitting no method. Meet, thank you. In fact, when I started as a student, guys, all right, I too had no method. All I knew was, okay, I had already been teaching for multiple other exams, not for GMAT. And I thought, okay, what's the big deal? GMAT is just another exam. So I took the GMAT exam the first time without any prep, just thinking it's a verbal exam. I mean, I'm a verbal expert. I can just give it like that. I don't need any prep. And I went and took it. I'm not going to talk to you about the score there. It was very bad. This was before I started teaching GMAT. And I realized right at that time that no, this is not about English. It's more than that. It's called verbal reasoning for a reason. There has to be a logic, there has to be a logical, let's say, system to this. So GMAT doesn't work just on English, all right? Ashwin, quant is logical, verbal is equally logical. I wish, Ashwin, that you would attend a session with me and I would show you how logical I can actually plot a graph for a verbal problem as well. All right. So Trupti, trust me, it can definitely, the method that I'm going to discuss can be applied to all questions. All right. So I'm going to talk about that. Let's actually, I've been saying a lot about this. Here is an official GMAT paragraph. Okay. I have not posted the question yet. I have just taken the first paragraph of a two paragraph passage. It's an official passage. And I want all of you to read this passage. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to read this. Yes, I'm giving you a lot of time, I know, but I want you to give this a good attempt. And then I'm going to post the question and ask you to solve this question. All right. So I'm going to mute myself for the next 3 minutes. All right. I want all of you to read this paragraph. All right. And I'll bring a question at the end of it. And then we're going to talk about method. We're going to talk about logic. I'm going to talk about a step by step, let's say, approach to RC. All of you who have been talking about fixed methodology is difficult or not logical, or, I don't know how to do it. So Priyanka, I will furnish the details at the end of the webinar. Please stay with me. I'll give you you can definitely connect with us over support@gmatwiz.com, or I'll give you WhatsApp numbers at the end of the session to get in touch with us. All right, Priyanka. In the meantime, you can, I'm just going to put up the link to the free trial version. In fact, there are two links which I'll share in the, 1 second, I'll share in the chat box. You can use these links to talk to us or to take a quick look at the free trial version of our course. So let me just put it out there in a moment. 1 second. Yeah, so you can see the link. I'll just put it on screen. Yeah. So you can see the two links on the screen. One is a link to the free trial version of the course, and one is a link to set up a free call with our strategy experts on calendly.com. All right, you can do that to get in touch with us. All right, so sorry for disturbing you. Um, Please get on with reading this question. I'm going to mute myself in the meantime, and then we're going to discuss further. All right? 3 minutes, your time starts now. All right, guys. So I'm sure that you've read the passage, you've read the question. You can start posting your answers. If you want, you can post your answers. I'm going to discuss the answer in a short while, but before that, I have something more important to share. So, yes, you can post your answers if you have finished solving it. I'll give you 1 more minute to go through the question. Yes, guys, let's quickly have the answers if you have been able to solve it. Tanya says D, Trupti says D. Let's look at some other answers as well. Now, while you're answering that, because I want to discuss this again, I'm pretty sure that some common problems that you faced with this passage, if you did face it, and if you face with other passages as well, is that you're confused about the meaning of certain words. You find yourself having to go back to the passage after reading the question and rereading the parts of passage. And oftentimes it is also possible that you are not very sure about the answer, even if you're marking an answer, you're like really low on confidence, which affects your later questions as well. These are some very common problems in RC. And I'm sure when you were going through the passage just now, you were also facing this problem. You were confused about the meaning of certain words, or maybe confused about the meaning of certain sentences. Perhaps you had to refer back to the passage when you were solving the question. And even when you marked the answer, you might not have been very sure of the answer. All right. Again, remember, the purpose of this session is not to make you solve the question, but to show you how to draw up a master plan in order to be able to improve your verbal in a short period of time. So I have answers such as C, A. So Ratan and Dipanshu believe it's C, Yasin believe it's A, and I'm sure the others out there, a lot of you are out there, are still struggling to understand the passage. I'll make it easy for you, don't worry. All right. So as I said, these are some common problems in RC. The right reading style should be what? All right. Now I am going to show you how this passage should be read. All right. Okay. Please have a little bit, be patient with me. Now, the thumb rule of the right reading style is you don't read too many words in one shot. You always break down your sentences and read. And if you read like that, it is easy for you to understand the meaning. Now, see, for example, this paragraph is made up of just three sentences: sentence one, sentence two, sentence three. I mean, look at the length of this one sentence. How do you hope to conquer this if you don't know the right reading style? Will you reread it 2-3 times and understand it? Or will you just look at some keywords and understand it? Can you understand it by skimming through? No. There has to be a typical step by step approach to reading it. How to read it best. All right. So I'm going to read this and show you how this should be dealt with. It is an odd but indisputable fact. So I'm going to stop here and I'll tell myself, okay, here I have the author's opinion. Okay, author finds something odd, but the author does not dispute it. What is it that the author finds odd? That is going to tell me what the author is finding odd. 17th century English women. Now I'm going to use a short form for these. 17th century English women. All right, something like this, the CEW, who are generally regarded as among the forerunners of modern feminism. All right. So these 17th century CEWs are actually early feminists. All right. I'm going to refer to them as early feminists. Are almost all identified with. Okay. So the subject is, it is an odd but indisputable fact. What is odd? That these early feminists are all identified with the royalist side. All right. Identified means connected with, related with, associated with the royalist side. Don't worry if you don't know what is royalist side. It's just the name of a side. It's a proper noun. In the conflict, that means in the clash between royalists and parliamentarians, known as the English Civil Wars. So, in my head, I'm mapping it as I have got English Civil Wars. I'm just showing this for your benefit, how my brain has categorized the information. The English Civil Wars have two sides: royalist side and the parliamentarian side. Okay. And the author finds it odd that all early feminists, okay, this, so that means the author is finding it odd that nobody comes from the parliamentarian side. Why the author finds it odd, I don't know yet, but I can preempt that perhaps the author will discuss why is this odd. It's a fact, but why is it odd to the author? How many of you all do this? How many of y'all actually did this? How many of y'all actually read this sentence like this? The clarity. Now, do you need to know who is the royalist side? Not really. Do you need to know who is the parliamentary? Not really. The side one, side two. That's it. Okay. But breaking down sentences, connecting the different parts of the sentence, getting to the crux, understanding whether it's the author's opinion, somebody else's opinion, whether it's a fact, all these things are how you should read. Gaurav, it takes a lot of time to do a lot of things. Okay, 75% like you, I just didn't focus on the odd. Hmm. It's very important to focus on the odd because that's an opinion. See, guys, what Gaurav has said also has a bit of truth in that. Yes, it takes a lot of time to read like this when you're learning how to read it. But do you hope to, learn the concept and become proficient in reading by skimming the passages? No, GMAT won't work like that, Gaurav. So you have to go about it the hard way. When you are learning a skill, so if you're learning how to swim, if you're learning how to drive car, if you're okay, if you I mean, I'm sure a lot of you out there are engineers. It took you 4 years to become an engineer. Did you so from when you entered engineering at your class 12 level, I mean, at your high school level, did you straight away become a proficient software engineer? No, it took time. Can you cut down those 4 years? But now when you sit down to do things, it's easy for you. You can be talking to your friend and writing down a code. So, Gaurav, yes, it takes a lot of time. Learning stage will take a lot of time, but you can plan it. You can plan it out. You can reduce that learning time by good planning. Gaurav, what I do, I don't really want to take down too many notes. Okay. If you want, you can just write down one short phrase for this entire sentence. For example, when you finish reading this sentence, you might want to write down, okay, that let's say odd early feminists, or you don't need to write down too many things. Okay. But reading is where your focus should be. All right. Anyway, so the first paragraph is basically introducing. We were talking about maps, right? So the first paragraph is introducing odd but indisputable fact. That's all. That's the crux if you want to map. Okay, next, we have a huge paragraph here. Let's understand this. Now, I'll just talk to you briefly because this is a construction that you will find very commonly. You will find that some information in the sentence is given within a dash, and then you have the rest of the sentence. How I read this sentence, I'm telling you, I will first read the sentence without reading this. And then once I have finished reading the sentence, then I will go back to this piece of information. I'm not going to ignore it. But first, I'm just going to read this part. Like, I'm going to connect this straight away to this. Let me do that for you. Since, now this is a very important conjunction here. Transition word, I call it. At GMAT Wiz, we tell you to pay a lot of attention to these transition words because they tell you which direction the passage is taking, or how the thought process is changing. So, since here means because royalist ideology, that means royalist belief. Because, so author is giving you the cause behind some effect. This paragraph is going to talk about cause and effect. All right, let's stick to that. Since royalist ideology is often associated with radical patriarchalism of 17th century political theorist Robert Filmer. Now, so many details. What do you need to remember? I'm just going to point out what. So, the best way to remember is since royalist ideology is associated with patriarchalism of Filmer. Okay, it's radical, what century the filmer belonged to. All these are data that you can check up on if you face a question on that. But the crux of the sentence is because royalist ideology is linked to filmers' patriarchalism. Because of that, and remember, I'm going to read this part later. Because of that, historians have been understandably puzzled. Again, we are looking at the word puzzled, which resonates with the word odd. Understandably tells us the author agrees with these historians by the fact that royalist women of subordination of women in marriage and systematic assertions of women's equality with men. Hold on. So that means the previous diagram that we drew, English civil wars, this was the diagram, right? And parliamentarians, this we have, right? And these belong to this. And in this paragraph, the author is continuing. The author is saying that royalists were all patriarchalists, all right? And therefore, women wrote against patriarchalism. Now, what is patriarchalism? Now I'm going to read this. Patriarchalism equates family and kingdom. Okay, family equals to kingdom and asserts the divinely ordained power of the king and by analogy of the male head of the household. So the male is powerful in a family, similar to how the king is powerful over a kingdom. So, so the royalists believed in, this is why it is odd that the feminists came from the royalist side. Okay. Now I'm going to connect this para to this para, and this is what I have. The author is now telling us why it is odd. So, first paragraph introduced the odd fact, and now the author is discussing why odd. So, this is my introduction of the odd fact. Now, the reasons why it is odd. Again, I'm saying it will take you time to learn this technique. Give yourself 10 days. Trust me, if you do this every day, you will become proficient at it. Yes, PJ, I would recommend this level of depth until you learn to do this intuitively. See, anything, I'm going to discuss about the time factor also, guys. Don't worry. I am well aware that you cannot do this exactly like this in the exam. But this is where we want to reach. That if I read it once, I do not have to reread anything. If I read it like this, I have such a good understanding of the passage that I can solve the question in under a minute. The question. So my reading time will be my maximum time. My question solving time will be the least amount of time. All right, let me complete this quickly. All right. So the second paragraph, and those of you who were saying verbal is not logical, connected to another. Okay, everything here is linked. So the author introduces the odd fact, and now the author is telling you why the author finds it odd. Let's read on the final sentence. Some historians have questioned the facile. Now, if you don't know the word facile, should you panic? No, ignore it. If the author wants you to understand the meaning of facile, some context will be given to you. For example, look at this part. The author wanted you to understand the meaning of patriarchalism, so the meaning of patriarchalism was given to you. So, if you don't know the meaning of these exotic words, fear not. Okay, learn to look at the context. So, some historians have questioned the equation of royalist ideology with patriarchalism, Filmarian. So, in this paragraph, we are discussing okay, royalist ideology with patriarchalism. was equal. Now in this paragraph we are saying that his don't agree with this. They have questioned means they don't agree with this, right? And indeed that means the author too doesn't quite believe in the Filmarian patriarchalism equals to royalist ideology. Why? There may have been no difference between royalists and parliamentarians. Okay, remember the whole issue was why are all the early feminists coming from royalist side? Why are they not coming from parliamentarian side? And here the author is saying that it is quite possible that the royalists and parliamentarians did not have any differences on issues of family organization and women's political rights. But now this but is very important. In that case means if royalists and parliamentarians agreed with each other, then one would expect early feminists to be divided between two sides, and we are back to the idea that it is odd that English women all came from the royalist side. So if we really look at the mind map, the first paragraph is the introduction of the indisputable fact. Second paragraph talks about why this fact is odd. It's odd because it is believed that royalists followed patriarchalism, but then how come royalist women became feminists against patriarchalism? And the third paragraph says that there should be a reason for this oddity. All right, but the author does not quite discuss the reason in detail. Why do did all early feminists come from the royalist side? That thing the author hasn't discussed yet. In fact, if if we were to take up the this is the beginning of the second paragraph. All right, here the author actually discusses the reason with an example. The author quotes Catherine Gallagher and says Catherine Gallagher argues that royalism engendered feminism. Engendered means gave birth to. So the author is saying royalism is the reason why these women became feminists, because the ideology of absolute monarchy provided a transition to the ideology of absolute self. Absolute self is probably something to do with feminism. All right. So mapping the passage becomes easy if you're reading a sentence, understanding the crux, and preempting what can come next. All right. So those of you who believe that okay, so much of time is going to be spent, right? Is this even logical? Sorry, is this even practical? Well, consider this. You spent 3.5 minutes reading the first paragraph. Now this is the second paragraph. If I gave you time to read the second paragraph, you will realize it will not take you much, because you have understood the context built up by the author in the first paragraph. So reading the second paragraph doesn't take too much time. Even then, total time spent on the passage is 9 minutes. How? So 3.5 plus 1.5 equals to 5 minutes you are taking to read the passage properly. And for 4 questions, you are taking about just 1 minute each question. So 4 minutes. That gives 9 minutes. And this is a 805 plus level passage, guys. All right. So if you compare this time, but if you skim the passage, how much time will you take? You will take 1.5 minutes to skim over this para. Another comes to solving 4 questions. The questions will take you more time because you haven't understood the passage. You're constantly going back and forth between the passage. So you end up taking 10 minutes. All right. Now you might be thinking that it's just 1 minute difference, right? I mean, let's compare. Here you're taking 10 minutes, here you're taking 9 minutes. What's the big deal? Involved and evolved reading will give you accuracy. Involved and evolved reading will give you accuracy. All right, remember this. So in trying to save time, you are actually taking a lot of time. You're saving time here, you're saving time here, but what happened here? On the other hand, you're spending time here, you're spending time here, and this is giving you results here. Trust me, guys, accuracy will improve like anything. but you have to build the proficiency. All right, you have to be patient. So when we're talking about a master plan for improving from 50th percentile to 99th percentile, you have to figure in not only learning concepts, but a good amount of time has to be spent on learning the right approach, setting up a proper methodology. And at GMAT Wiz, we focus on this methodology a lot. Every institute will teach you the same concepts, no difference. But how to follow up on that concepts? What are the steps you should undertake so that you optimize your time, you don't waste time, you get the best possible accuracy, the highest accuracy? Those are the things that we are going to focus on. You are again, I'm sure, wondering, is it even possible? Timing efficiency is something that you develop over time, right? Okay, initial stage, if you follow the involved and evolved reading, all right, uh, you will be taking 7 to 10 minutes to read the passage and probably 4 to 5 minutes to solve 4 questions. So definitely this will be very high initially, but please resist the temptation to fall back to skimming and scanning, because in the end it won't work. And if you don't develop the habit of reading in an involved manner, in the exam you're not going to actually follow it. All right, so total initially you will be taking 14 to 15 minutes to solve a passage of 4 questions by following the involved and evolved reading. But okay, because at this time you are doing things with your conscious mind. All right, so when you're learning a skill, your conscious mind is involved, and that is why it will take you more time. But advanced stages of this practice of using involved and evolved reading, you will find that instead of 7 to 10 minutes, now you're able to read your passage in 5 minutes. And here your subconscious is at play. When the subconscious is at play, we are talking about muscle memory. All right, what to do even without you doing it consciously. It's like you're getting into the car on the cell phone, you're not even doing things consciously, but automatically your muscle memory is there. It knows that you have to first turn in the key in the ignition, then you have to use your legs to utilize the clutch and the accelerator, and your hands have to be on the brakes, hands have to be on the gears, and you have to coordinate all of this, but you do it subconsciously. All right, so you will begin here, but this is where you will reach. All right, so timing efficiency develops over time. Now the answer to this one, I'm sure all of you are waiting for me to provide you with the answer here. All right, Yasin, each passage needs a unique strategy. What do you mean by that? This was the general method, Yasin. This was the general method. Every line has 4 things to convey: what is being said, who is saying it, why is being said. All right, what, who, why. And for every line you have to understand this and move to the next line, and then between the first line and the second line you have to ask yourself, how are these 2 lines connected, and you have to form the mental map. Every passage you can solve using this methodology. I'm saying this on an open media like YouTube, and you can give me any passage and I can do this and show you that it can be done. All right, it is always the same. There is no different strategy for solving different kinds of passages. Had that been the case, it would be very difficult to take the GMAT exam in that limited amount of time. Trust me, I have been teaching for over 15 years now, and I have tried different things, all sorts of things, trust me, in my quest to find the perfect, optimal solution. Yes, Trupti, we have to connect the dots. All right. So, anyways, we are going to talk about the solution to all of this. Anyways, let's talk about this. The question is saying the author of the passage refers to Robert Filmer in order to. At GMAT Viz, we call this a function question. That means we have to find out what is the function of mentioning Robert Filmer. Now, remember, Filmer was mentioned to introduce patriarchalism. Patriarchalism was mentioned to show the power of the king. and of the male head, and historians are puzzled because royalist women, okay, believed in men. So Filmer was mentioned to tell us that why historians were puzzled, why the author finds it odd. Okay, Filmer was introduced in order to point out why odd that are royalists. Why? Because early feminists' ideologies were the opposite of royalist ideology. All right. So let's look at the options now. In order to show that royalist ideology was more radical, did the author want to tell us that royalist ideology was more radical? No, that was not the purpose of mentioning Filmer. The purpose of mentioning Filmer was to tell us that feminists wrote against male power and royalists followed male power. Royalists adhered to male power. Qualify. Now, the word qualify means to limit the meaning of something. Is the author trying to limit any claim that patriarchalism formed the basis of royalist ideology? Is the author trying to change that claim? No. So, qualify is quite the wrong word. The author is not trying to qualify the claim or anything as such here. Okay. Question the view. Okay, question means to disagree. Which view is the author disagreeing with? Most early feminists were associated with royalist faction. Does the author disagree with this? No. The author says it's a fact that all the 17th century women are all with the royalist side. That's a fact. So the author is not disagreeing with that fact. The author is not questioning with that fact. That's also gone. Sorry, guys. Is the author trying to mention Filmer because the author wants to highlight means focus on apparent tension means contrast between royalist ideology and ideas of early feminists? Yes, absolutely. The author wants to tell us that the early feminists wrote in favor of women's equality with men. They wrote against women's subordination, but the royalists believed in male power. So yes, the author wants to discuss that. That is why Filmer has been introduced, and D is the correct answer. E, argue that royalists held conflicting opinions on issues of family organization and women's political rights? No, that came much later, and that has got nothing to do with Filmer's patriarchalism. So E is also out. The correct answer would have been D. So you can see how easy it becomes to solve the question itself if you have understood your passage well. All right. Skimming won't work on GMAT. All right. 85% of the GMAT RC questions are inference based. All right. If you look at CR also, when you look at the CR inference questions, of course, that is inference itself. But even for the other CR stimulus, if you're looking at an assumption question, if you're looking at a weekend question, strengthen question, you still have to draw inferences when you're reading the stimulus. If you don't infer the meaning, you will not get the question right. You have to infer the meaning of the answer choice as well. So inference is very important, not just for RC questions, but for any other question that you attempt on CR. All right. And because of that, you have questions such as which of the following is the author most likely to agree with, what is the function of this word. None of these answers are going to be written anywhere. 700 level questions will test you on overall inference of the passage, not any one particular place which you can go back to when you're answering the question. So global inference is more important than just drawing local inferences. All right, constantly going back and forth between the passage. What is the solution? The solution is you must have the right method for verbal as well. In today's session, I haven't been able to discuss much on CR, but trust me, the way you have to have a method for reading the passage, for solving the questions. Similarly, you have to have a method for solving CR questions. In fact, the key difference that we just saw was not focusing on reading speed but focusing on comprehension speed. Let your method be guided by comprehension and not the speed of reading. All right, then only you will be able to uh, uh, get the highest accuracy. And for this you need to build the right RC skills. So learning the approach means, okay, if we are talking about the master plan to go from 50 percentile to 99 percentile, first thing is build the right skills. At GMAT Wiz, we have small videos telling you where to pause, how to break down the sentence. You've seen me doing it. You've seen me doing it effortlessly. But how to do it? If you don't know how to do it, we teach you how to do it. How to take care of words that you don't understand. How to utilize the context to understand the meaning of complex words. How to differentiate between facts and opinions, because you have a lot of questions which are based on opinions. You have to differentiate between this is the author's opinion, this is not the author's opinion. And through all of this, you have to understand the main point of the passage. So we dedicate hours. If you see, this is a screenshot from our portal. One of the units is the skill builder. Over 9 hours is dedicated just to help you build the right skills. So learning the approach, the concept itself, means you're building a skill. You're not just understanding the different types of questions. Okay, learning the right approach, step by step, step by step, step by step. How to develop the right schedule then? Look, again, we've spoken about the common strategy. Let me learn the concept, practice the questions, do more questions if I'm not doing well. So live, die, repeat, live, die, repeat. That was a movie by featuring Tom Cruise, if you've seen it, where you go through a process, you die, and then you go back to that same point of life, and then again begin and die, and then again go back to the same. I mean, a lot of us do this. This doesn't work. You're wasting your time, guys. Instead, what you need to do is set up your skills for verbal. See, in verbal, three primary skills are tested, all right, on GMAT: comprehension skills, analytical reasoning, and your ability to focus on the main point, on the bigger picture. You should start with learning CR. Why? Because CR is a stepping stone to RC. It's a smaller board, it's a mini RC. The question types are same in CR and RC, right? So in CR, you learn how to comprehend, how to connect one sentence and the other, how to connect statement one, statement two, statement three, how to spot the gaps, how to draw inferences, your analytical reasoning. And then from that, you move to a bigger skill set, and that is RC. All right. So skill based learning is the first step to this master plan. All right. When you are drawing up your weekly routine, you have to feature in this part first, dedicatedly. Once you have done this, then you are going to move to the right methods. Okay, I have understood, I have gone through I have built the right skills to comprehend better, I have built the right skills to analyze, I have, you know, now how to solve the CR questions using the right method. So at GMAT Wiz, we use these framework driven pre-thinking, the right approach to CR, step by step, how to read the stimulus, how to fix the scope of the conclusion. See, eliminate options saying this is out of scope, that is out of scope. Do you ever set up the scope? You should go and watch my video on how to set up the scope of questions in CR. So we follow the right method, the framework driven pre-thinking, and I've already shared my the link to the free trial version of the course if you want to check it out. Then RCs, we follow the involved and evolved reading method. I showed you a small glimpse of that. So learn the right method. So learn the right skills, then learn the right methods to utilize those skills. All right. So learning stage for each topic, like for example in quant, you have different topics, there are different stages, right? You learn the concept of that topic, you learn the method of that topic, then you practice different levels of questions, and then you take sectional tests, and then, you know, same thing for verbal. Stage one should be where you're learning the concepts, all right, you're building the skills. Stage two should be when you're mastering the approach, the method. Stage three should be where you're practicing the questions on a particular topic, and stage four is your success. If you don't follow this stage, that means you jump from learning concepts to directly applying the concepts, what you will do is you will keep making the same mistake, and solving more questions is not going to resolve this. So the master plan is: first learn the concepts, develop skills, learn the right methods, practice the methods, master the method, then practice on the questions. All right. Otherwise, you'll find yourself stuck in the 600, 650 zone. All right. So how to master the approach? Now comes the question. So I've already discussed of how to learn the approach, that how to learn the concepts, and that is to build the right skills. How to master that skill? Now, this is a very important thing. How will you master it? Who will tell you you're following the right approach or not? Who will tell you you're making mistakes? You need to adhere to a provider who, or you have to look at solutions which will help you do this. See, step one is learning the right method. So, I mean, I'm just giving you an example of playing what we call street cricket. While playing street cricket, you learn a lot of different styles. You learn it from some friend or the other. Somebody tells you this. But if you want to become a Virat Kohli or anybody, and at the top level, you have to master that approach constantly. You have to hone out the errors in that approach. You have to set up the right methods, and then only you will achieve your goal. So the mastering the approach requires you to go through the solutions carefully. You will learn a lot more by following up on the solutions of the questions that you are solving than solving more questions itself. But problem is, you don't have really that many good solutions out there. No, we all know what kind of solutions are there, that the official guides provide us. Not very helpful. All right. So how most people analyze solutions is, and I'm sure you also might be doing the same thing. You don't go through the solution of questions that you get right. You only go through the solutions of questions that you get wrong. Or maybe you go through the solution of questions that you have gotten right, but you go through reviewing only those answer choices which you were confused with. You just spend time analyzing the options. You don't go through all of it. All right. um, you find no improvement on score. If this is what you're doing, half reviewing the solutions or just looking at the options and the explanation of the options and not reviewing the thorough solution or not following any thorough solution, then you are not going to improve your score. How are you going to master the approach? How are you going to improve the score? You have to refer to solutions which offer you a consistent and logical method. What do I mean by that? I explained to you a method of reading the passage. You want to follow a solution where the proper method of reading that passage is laid out in front of you. Proper step by step elimination of choices is laid out for you, and everything, the mapping of the passage is laid out for you, so that once you have finished solving the passage, you can go and compare it to the solution and ask yourself, was I also doing the same thing? This is very, very important. At GMAT Viz, you'll find all the solutions are written in the same detailed manner, so that once you solve a question, you can actually compare the solution with your thought process and match. You have to verify each question irrespective of whether you get it right or wrong. All right. 80% of your, let's say, practice time should go in understanding the sentence, the argument, the passage analysis. All right. And you should note down wherever you deviated from the approach. Let's say you solved the question in a way, you got it right, but when you went through the solution, you realized that there was a certain thing that you did not do, you missed doing it, or you did wrong. That deviation should be entered in your error log, so that you know what is it that you have to now work on, your weak areas, so that you can master the right approach. Here is a sample error log, guys. You don't have to follow this diligently. This is something that I asked some of my students to do, where you copy the link of the question or the question here. After solving the question, you write down the time taken, your that question. But what is important is, you go to the, after jotting these things down, you go through the solution, and then you note down anything that you missed, even if you got the question right, things that you did wrong, and then finally, what do you need to do going further. So at the end of a week, summarize your error log, and you have the things that you need to work on. All right. You have to keep refreshing this error log. This, I have found it very effective in case of a lot of my students who have gone on to score the 99th percentile, even the 100th percentile. All right. Keshav, the framework thing I have not discussed today. We don't have enough time to discuss the framework. All right. I have shared the link to the free trial version of the course. Maybe you can take a look at the framework. I have a webinar coming up on Monday. All right. The webinar is going to be on a main point of the RC questions. Next Saturday, next Saturday is I think 17th. Yes, 17th. On the 17th, I have a webinar coming up on frameworks, Keshav. So you can get in touch with support@gmatviz.com. They will give you the link to attend that webinar. All right. Uh, yeah. Yes. Who, what, why was on the passage, Keshav. Yes. Who is saying this? What is being said and why is it being said? The three W's. Absolutely. All right. So anyways, we were talking about the importance of noting down the variance in your approach, and the variance should be noted down in a proper error log from where you can retrieve the data to understand where you're going wrong. All right. I'll just explain how to review the question. Let's say this is a question that you have, CR question. I'm not asking you to solve this. Don't solve it. Okay. Once you have solved this question, let's say you marked whatever B, C, or whatever as the answer. Now, and let's say you got it right also. How to review the solution? Step one, at GMAT Viz, we analyze the stimulus and the question stem. So you can see here is the sentence, and these bullet points are telling you what you need to infer, what you should have inferred. These bullet points are telling you what you should have inferred from this sentence. So when you are going through the analysis, you should analyze every sentence and you should ask yourself, did I understand it like this? Did I analyze it like this? Did I okay, did I reach this conclusion? Was I precise about understanding all this? So everything needs to be matched for you to know whether you are following the right approach. This is how you will master the approach. This is what Akshat, one of my ex students, did. He gave the classic version. He went from a 650 to 730 in just 24 days. All right. How did he improve his understanding? He improved his understanding of the methods that he was using. All right. He ensured that he was adhering to the framework driven pre-thinking in CR. He reviewed solutions in depth for the even the correct questions to understand whether he was eliminating choices for the right reasons. So he tried to understand where he was making the most mistakes. Like, was he constantly choosing distortion answers? Was he constantly choosing out of scope answers for incorrect choices? What was he doing? Once he learned the patterns of his incorrect answers, he was able to revisit those weak areas to improve his understanding. And above all, he believed in himself and his methodologies. All right. So that is very, very important. If you need the strategy, if you are a retaker and you need a strategy to formulate your master plan, you can get in touch with us on the calendly.com link that we have shared earlier with you. I'll share it with you again. But it's very important for us to consider certain factors, to chalk out a individual master plan. How much time is available for you? What is your target score? What are the resources that you have already utilized? Is there any unlearning or learning that you have to do? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What methods have you already used? Do we have to unlearn any method or not? What is your learning style and pace? All of these things we can consider, and we can definitely you can definitely talk to us about all these things. I'll um, So, Ritika, if you want to go up to the score of 84, 85, which is what we are discussing today, you need to learn the concepts first. You need to improve your skills. For that, you need to devotedly follow the right approach, the right method. All right. And then to master that method, you have to follow it up by going through the solutions, detailed solutions. And then you go to sessional test. You can connect with us, Ritika. Um, I'm just quickly sharing a link with you. All right. Hold on a second. So I'm just going to show you the link on the screen here. You can get in touch with us using that link. Set up a free call with us and we will help you out. Yes, Gaurav, you can. Although I'm saying this out of turn, I would need to know how many hours you can put in regularly. But I would say that August, September, October, 3 months is actually a very, very, very good amount of time to be able to reach the score you want to. I have had students who have reached that score in less time than that. All right. So let me hide this, guys. All right, let me get on with the. So let me quickly proceed. We are nearing the end of the webinar. So how do you tackle various topics? All right, now here's the thing. I would suggest that you take let's say you take a 23 question verbal test. Okay, all right, take a 23 question verbal sectional test right now at whatever level you are, to identify whether you need to work on the concept itself or your concepts are clear, whether you need to work on your application or methods. All right, if you have got less than 60% accuracy in either CR or RC, it means you have conceptual gaps. Your concepts are not clear. So you need to revisit your concepts and formulas and learn them. You have gaps there. You have, in your rush, maybe there are things that you haven't covered. All right, you have to learn how to solve the questions using the right method. And then you should practice 15 to 20 questions of every topic. This is how you will have to overcome your conceptual gap. If you are scoring between 60 to 85% accuracy, all right, then it means there are gaps in your application. That means there's a problem with your method. You're not solving questions methodically. You have ad hoc, you're just solving it ad hoc the way it comes. So you need to learn how to solve the questions methodically, and then you need to practice 10 to 15 questions. All right, improving weak areas is very, very, very important. As you need to then solve and review the questions that you have solved using the right methods of reviewing the solutions. Focus on learning the application. When you're reviewing the solution, you learn what mistakes you're making, and then you need to go back to the root cause. Why am I making this mistake? For example, if you missed a particular word. Let's say you missed a particular word on a CR stimulus. You missed the word significant, and therefore you got that question wrong. Why did you miss the word significant now? Think. Oh, I was reading too fast. Oh, I did not break down the sentences and read. Oh, I focused on some other keywords and I kind of lost track. So you have to constantly revisit concepts if conceptual issues are there. Understand the gaps in your methods if it's methodology, and solving and reviewing the questions. This is the area which is going to be the most important. Okay, this and this, focus on learning how to apply the concepts. Don't solve too many questions, solve it properly. So solve the question, review the solutions using all the time, populate your error log, and take the takeaway from there and work on those weak areas. All right, quality is more important than quantity. Remember that, always remember that. I had a student once, and I swear I'm not making this up. He told me I have solved over 3,000 verbal questions. And I was like, even I haven't solved that many questions, honestly. All right. But he was not performing well at all because he was doing the same mistakes again. And he had no idea that he was making those mistakes. Once he got into private tutoring with me, once he was solving the questions in front of me, in real time, I could tell you, look, stop, this is what you are doing wrong, this is the mistake you're making. And it really helped him to improve from a, he came to me with a verbal 19, 19, okay, and he went on to score a this is the classic version, verbal 37. In today that would be a really, really very good percentile in verbal. All right, anyways, you have to scale it up. In fact, I had another student who came to me with a very low verbal percentile. She was doing kind of reasonably well overall, but her verbal was faltering a lot. And what we realized during our private tutoring sessions is her concepts were like nowhere there. It was random. Sometimes she would get a good score in a mock, sometimes she wouldn't. Through the methodology, with gradually mastering the methodologies, she was able to score 86 in verbal. She recently gave the exam in the focus edition. She scored an 86 score in verbal with a 99th percentile in verbal. All right. So that shows how dedication and following the right approach relentlessly can help. Scale it up, guys. Okay. Make sure that you're optimizing, working on your weak areas constantly, while at the same time keeping your strong areas stabilized. Don't neglect them either when you're setting up the routine. Take sectional tests once you have worked on your weak areas to understand what progress you have made. And then you can take 4 to 5 mocks, not more than those, in order to reach your goal. Between one mock and the other, you should analyze your mistakes. You should go down to the, depending on what kind of mistakes you have made, what is your accuracy percentage and all that. You, if you need be, you have to revisit the concepts, you have to revisit the methodology, whatever. Focus on application gaps too. All right. Having someone to do this for you definitely helps. But yes, you can do this on your own as well. So that brings us to the end of this webinar, guys. All right. If you have any questions, I would be glad to answer this. Let me take up the questions, guys. Give me a moment. Mm, Okay, Gaurav, 2 hours per day, 10 hours over the weekend. That's about 20 hours a week. Gaurav, yes, 20 hours a week is more than enough time if you want to take the exam in November. Please do get in touch with us. Or if you're preparing on your own, also make sure that you have your concepts clear. You are focusing on building up your methodologies, and then you are focusing on taking the sectional tests before you take the mocks. Um, Ratan, am I correct in understanding that you are a fresher? 4 months, yes, 4 months would also be a good time. But you haven't told me how much time you'll be able to give on a daily basis, Ratan. If you are a fresher, then on a daily basis, I think you would need to give around 3 to 4 hours. All right, at least 3 hours per day, 3 to 4 hours. So Saksham says you've got an exam next month. You've done all the concepts and was able to answer hard questions, but just comprehending the passage and looking for options. Uh, you were able to answer hard questions by comprehending the passage. That's a very, very good. That's exactly what we need to do, Saksham. You have to understand the passage best, and thereafter focus on eliminating the choices with a solid reason. Whatever is left behind is the answer. But I think I don't like this part where you're saying looking for the options having some part of the passage. So that is not a very good idea, Saksham. If you look for familiar words in the answer choices, that will sometimes land you in trouble. There can be, we call it the familiar word trap. All right. So the familiar words are there in the answer choice, but they have been distorted to have a totally different meaning, and you will land up choosing the wrong answer. So comprehending the passage is very good, but looking for parts of the passage in the answer choice is not a very good, let's say, idea. So, Ratan, one of the things that you'll need to do is perhaps have a realistic routine set up for yourself, the way you have in your school, have a realistic routine set up that, okay, on a daily basis, realistically, I can give 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever. I'm going to divide that 3 hours or 2 hours in particular slots. And in this slot, I'm going to do this slot, I'm going to do this. All right. And over the weekends you'll need to put in more time. All right, so if you're giving up to 4 hours a day, very good. During the weekdays, during the weekend, maybe you can give a little more, because you've got to cover 3 areas: there's verbal, there's quant, there's di, right? Hi Saurabh, any questions you have for me? So guys, I hope if you've liked this webinar, do hit the like button. Um, do let me know through your comments whether this was helpful, because my interactions with students, I've realized a couple of things, that most of the block is here. Most of the block is the way we look at questions. Saurabh, there isn't much difference. Honestly speaking, there isn't much difference between the official marks and the actual exam. It's just that the actual exam, your mindset is that this is an actual exam, and you're a little more tense, and therefore you're a little more nervous. I don't think actually there is a difference in the difficulty level as such. Thank you, PJ. You found the session helpful. Glad to know that. That was the aim, that whatever we bring to the table helps you in resolving your issues. I've put up the two links on the screen right now, which you can use to resolve your queries. All right. I don't. So, guys, whatever issues you're facing right now with your preparation, it's time to take stock of that. Yeah. So, PJ, I have two webinars coming up in a short time. One I have this Monday. On Monday, you have a webinar on how to derive the main point of RCs. And on 17th of August, which is a Saturday, I have a webinar coming up on how to use frameworks to solve CR questions. You can get the links if you are a regular on GMAT Club, you will get the links there also, or you can write to support@gmatwiz.com to get the links as well. Keshav, LSAT RCs are almost all LSAT RCs are longer than the normal GMAT RCs, and one single RC has let's say different pattern, slightly different pattern, because there are 10 questions that you solve from one passage. All right. However, you can practice from LSAT as well if you have exhausted all resources. Just keep the method of reading uh, the passages the same. Yes, you can use those. Is work experience really required to apply for big B schools like Harvard? Why people keep telling me to gain 2 years experience first? Well, here's the thing, Ratan. Uh, at these top tier B schools, or the M7 as we call them, um, let's put it this way, that your admission will depend on various criteria. So your scores in your graduation will be one criteria, your experience will add one more weightage, your profile will add one more weightage. Different weightages will be added to your let's say admission profile, and then you will be evaluated on that. Now if you don't have any experience, so the weightage that experience would carry, that weightage has to be covered by the other areas, right? Like you have to be an overperformer in your, let's say, graduation level, or you have to have an amazing brilliant something extra in your extracurriculars or something or the other. Point is that that little bit of experience helps the adcom to understand what kind of skills you have developed, where you are headed for. So yes, it makes a bit of like, it does make sense to gain a little bit of experience before applying to B schools like that. All right, you'll be able to, in my opinion, you'll be able to draw more from such B schools if you have experience. All right. So any more questions I have? I don't see any other questions. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, all of you, for taking out time and giving your time. Um, it's the end of your week. I'm sure all of you are tired, and yet you have taken out your time and attended this webinar through and through. So I'm really, really, really thankful to you for that, and I'm wishing all of you the very best. All of you, very, very. God bless you in your endeavors, and whatever you do, do it wholeheartedly. Believe in yourself, and trust me, you will reach there. All right. So thank you so much, all of you. Ratan, yes, I think you should. You can start your prep. I mean, there is no harm in doing that. Maybe, for example, you can visit GMAT Club and you can start reading around on what kind of questions come in GMAT. You can start preparing. Preparation knows no bounds. All right. But as far as taking the actual exam is concerned, yes, you can take the exam also at any point of time. But yes, applying for the B schools, because these scores are valid for 5 years. If you take the exam, let's say in another 4 or 5 months, that particular score will be valid for 5 years. So you can apply anytime. So taking of the exam and applying to the B school need not be absolutely connected. So if you have just graduated, you can start your GMAT prep, Ratan. Okay. And once you have reached the score in the mocks that you want to reach, you can take the exam also. But applying to the B schools, perhaps it would be a good idea to gain some experience. That's what I would say. All right. So thank you guys. Thanks a lot. I have taken up a lot of your time, but a good day if you've just begun your day, and a good night to all of you who are ending your day. Um, See you sometime again, and I hope to see a lot of you around in some of my upcoming webinars as well. Bye bye and take care. Happy learning. Thank you, everybody.